All right. I believe we're live, I think. Hello, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another Coffee Break Live. Are we live? I don't know if I see the... Yeah, we're live. Heck yeah. I think we are. Today we're talking about what are the best elements to homebrew. We've got some great notes from Discord. We're going to get notes from the chat. And it's going to be awesome. I love talking about this. Happy Friday, everyone. It's Friday, the last Friday or the last day for Coffee Break Live of the week. And I enjoy Fridays because to me, it's like we're wrapping up the week. We made it. We made it. Another week. I'm going to pin the comment here to join the Discord. Dr. Fibes is in the house. Hello, Dr. Fibes. Herminator is in here. Hey, yo. How's it going, Herminator? Garrick Strangle and a bra commercial. Yes. The only God is gold and God is good. Robert Evans. Good morning, everyone. Superfly checking in. Superfly Rob in the house. Robert says, yo, got my coffee. Stream sounds good. You know what? I was drinking a Monster, but it's gone. I'm already done with my Monster. We're already caffeinated up. It's birthday weekend for Dr. Fibes. Happy birthday, Dr. Fibes. How old are you? JW. Hey, JW. How's it going? I haven't seen you in a while in the live stream. Great to see you. Does my audio sound okay to all of you awesome people? I hope it does. I think we got it sorted out, the audio. But we have some really important things to talk about here. We're talking about what are the best TTRPG elements to homebrew. All right. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this. And I'm going to this is actually going to be a little different than you might expect. I'm going to tell you what things I don't want to homebrew because there are a lot of things I want to homebrew. I homebrew almost everything. I homebrew world states. I homebrew characters, NPCs, monsters, magic items. I homebrew all kinds of things. Let me tell you what I don't want to homebrew. I don't want to homebrew based mechanics. Not when I'm playing D&D. Right now I'm playing D&D 5e 2024. I don't want to homebrew based mechanics. It's labor intensive. I think that's why I buy the books. I don't want to homebrew them. Okay. And then secondly, I do not want to homebrew spells unless player characters specifically want to homebrew a type of spell and they like say, I want this type of spell and it's not in the book. Then I want to homebrew it. But for the most part, all that rule work is already done. I don't want to do it again. I don't. If someone is like, I want to learn Magic Missile, I don't think to myself, you know what, I'm going to need to homebrew my own version of Magic Missile. You know, the version in the Player's Handbook isn't going to work for me. No, I don't do that. I want to use the versions in the books because I don't want to do all that work again. Aside from that, everything is game. Everything is game to homebrew, and I homebrew at least part of everything else that goes on. So that's my answer, and that's very simple. It's very simple. Let's see here. Robert Evans says, happy birthday, Doc. Relin Smash. Hey, all. Hey, Relin, how's it going? Dr. Five says, old enough not to hang out around alone in the wrong places. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Relin says homebrew for flavor. LD. Absolutely homebrew for flavor. Garrick says second the base mechanics point. Too many unintended results. Yes. I have done that. I've homebrewed too many mechanics and found myself in a place I did not want to be in. I've done that. When I say that, I mean in-game with broken things going on. And it was a headache. And I didn't want to do it. There's a reason they play test those things. There's a reason. All right, let's dive into some comments. Here's how the format of this usually goes. I post this in the Discord earlier in the day. Today I didn't get to it until later, but I'm impressed. There are a lot of great comments in here, and I'm going to read them. And if you want to join these, I do this every single day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We go Coffee Break Live. We go live for about 30 minutes and we discuss a topic. I post that topic earlier in the Discord. If you'd like to join that conversation, join my Discord. Link is in the pinned comments. Did I pin it? Did I pin it? Yeah, I pinned it. It's in the pinned comments. Join the Discord. There's like 353 of us, I think, at this point. And you can join that conversation. So I'd love to have you. All right, let's dive into this. Super Manga Nerd said, I think usually people resort to homebrew when they find something is missing from a base game they enjoy, whether it's a race or a type of class. Sometimes it can just be a fun little character item that helps them in some way to perfect the build they're going for. I know one person on another server who made a whole bunch of monster people themed races just because they enjoy doing it. I think that phrase right there, just because they enjoy doing it, that's a really good reason to homebrew, actually. Great thoughts. Thank you, Super Manga Nerd. Very valid points there. Whispering Wisp says this. Speaking of which, Whispering Wisp, one of our contest winners. We run content creation contests every single month in the Discord. Right now, it's a 2-page faction contest. You want to join? There's still time. The due date isn't until the 31st. Join us and hang out with us. Whispering Wisp is one of the contest winners. Whispering Wisp says, the biggest ones for my past group we made on the fly. An overrun mechanic, because it didn't make sense one person at a choke point could hold back 20 aggressive zombies. The other was a looser narrative one, where they started a rebellion in the city, going from individual combat to captain to commander as they approached the castle walls. That makes sense. That does make sense. I understand what Whispering was saying there. Okay, shabam. I'm going to get to some of these comments here. Let's see. Herminator says same. Okay, Relin Smash says, let the player rename Magic Missile as Bobos Magic Missiles, and they look like eyeballs, but other than that, it is the same spell. That's what I allow. So reflavoring spells just for flavor is super fun. I find that is less dangerous than letting people try to homebrew the mechanics of spells, because it usually ends up broken. But I totally get you. And I usually, if someone casts Magic Missile, I'll say something like, describe what it looks like. And then I'll let them describe it. And maybe they say it's a green light, or it's like, can I make it look kind of like electric bolts? It's like, hell yeah, you can make it look like whatever you'd like. I love it. I love it when people flavor their spells to their characters, but the effects are the same. Boom, I love it. It's like putting a different skin on it. Dungeons and 20s is in the house. William, howdy. Homebrew, my favorite treasure in D&D. Hell yeah. Look up Dungeons and 20s YouTube, on YouTube and on Twitch, and I play Gromazek, Lawful Evil Bard Minotaur, in William's game on Sunday evenings, which streams live on Twitch. So you know what, check back. I always post it in my community notes. You should watch it. It's awesome. Jason says, hello, everyone. Hey, Jason. Steven says, I love to homebrew magic items. Heck yeah, Steven. Prophet Roll says, hey, everyone. Hey, Prophet Roll. Unfortunately, we're not playing Haunting at Ashbro tonight because Delante is busy. It is very unfortunate, but we will get back to it next week, I hope. Awas Ark says, greeting, folks. Hope everyone's well. Great to see you, Awas Ark. Dungeons and 20s says, I homebrew just to tie into the lore of my world. Awesome. JW says, some not so mechanical rules need tweaking. For example, there's no condition for not being able to move your limbs, but still talk in 2024. That is so specific. The old incapacitated worked, so I keep the old rule. Those of you who have watched me for any length of time know that I still run 3rd edition Reincarnate. Do you know what 3rd edition Reincarnate was like? Look that up. The 3rd edition Reincarnate spell was lit. 5e is weak, in my opinion. 3rd edition got it right. I totally understand where JW is coming from. I totally understand. Prophet Roll says, I'm a little back and forth moderating on Twitch at the moment. Nice. Heck yeah. I would like to know what you moderate for, Prophet Roll. That's awesome. Sloan Running says, first live. How we doing, everyone? Sloan, we're doing great, especially since you're here. Awazark says, I homebrewed about 70% of my world-specific content. That's awesome. I actually love that. Dungeons of 20 said, I homebrewed all the spells I liked from 2nd edition using the 4 spell tombs and revised them into my world for 5e using my NPC names. That's super awesome. Sort of like Mordenkainians or Tasha's, like you homebrew in with like legendary characters. That's super awesome. Jason says, yes, flooring spells is great fun. I have a cleric of the Raven Queen and all his spells are themed to reflect her dark and death look. I love that. I have an NPC wizard who's like, okay, She goes to college in Amaranthine, which is like the magical capital of the world of Regenesis, but she's on spring break and she has a crush on one of the player characters named Roji, and he's a halfling wizard and she's a halfling wizard. And so she's been following him around in the adventures on her spring break, and she like loves all of it. Like they went to the abyss and everyone was like, this is so bad. And she's like, this is the best spring break ever. But she's a little bit crazy, and all of her spells are butterfly themed, like stone skin. When she casts it on someone, it looks like there are little butterflies covering their body. And when she casts the fly spell, it's actually the spell called Flight of the Lepidoptera, and she sprouts butterfly wings and flies. So I think that's super cool. Super cool. All right, let's go to some of these Discord comments real quick, because there's some really good ones in here. Kelf, shout out to Kelf. Kelf has been a great new addition to the Discord, who's contributed a lot. Kelf says, I love making subclasses, easily my favorite way to customize a player's D&D experience through a campaign. I can speak to this because in my campaign that's getting ready to come out soon, I'm playing the Barren Lands. It's going to start streaming on February 11th, 7 to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to stream on Twitch and on YouTube live every week. Kelf is playing a paladin who is a custom subclass, Sun Paladin, like kind of like a celestial, like sun paladin, but it's like the power of the sun. Very, very cool. So Kelf is definitely into the homebrewing of subclasses and homebrew some awesome subclasses. I love it. Garrick says, hey, shout out to Garrick. I approach homebrewing combat rules with fear and trembling. Homebrewing variations of monster types is a bread and butter activity that should be fairly constant. Homebrewing variations on magic drops is a very, very good thing. Homebrewing variations of monster types is a bread and butter activity. It should be very consistent. Homebrewing combat rules with fear and trembling is a great way to say it. I agree with you, Garrick. I agree with you. Dr. Fibes says, homebrew in its inception for D&D started as, what rules am I going to eliminate because of too complicated? Not understood. Doesn't fit my world like psionics. Psionics is very specific. Doesn't feel necessary for whatever reason, like encumbrance, etc. Then DMs start looking for ways to make it better, understood, etc. Then we started making the additional rules we wanted but couldn't find, like new stat blocks, how to run mass combat. Used Risk Avalon Hill Chits rules for this, because didn't have any copy of Gygax's Chamal supplement yet. New classes, rules for lasers, whatever. So that, Dr. Fibes, you went off in some directions that I've never heard of before, but I believe you. I believe you. I've never heard of the Avalon Hill Chits rules. I'm not sure if that was spelled right or if that's actually the name of it. I think you actually might have meant crits, but whatever. Boom, valid. Kep says, I like homebrewing things that give mechanical weight to things outside combat, if that makes sense, like travel, crafting, and social interactions. Right now, trying to come up with some chase mechanics, list of things that have a chance to occur round per round, like you find a good place to hide, the path splits, or an obstacle bars the way. Actually, that's a really good idea. So chasing scenes are kind of challenging. That gives me an idea for some random roll tables. We could totally whip up some random roll tables for a chase scene. Heck yeah. All right, I'm gonna get some of these comments here real quick. Let's see here. Robert says, I homebrew everything but the core rules. That's fair. That's fair. Prophet Roll says, I moderate quite a few channels, mostly just because I'm always there. That's cool. Steven says, I make items to make some abilities really pop. An amulet that let my moon druid barbarian wild shape and rage with the same bonus action. Okay. Steven, I appreciate you, and I see what you're doing. I see you. Could get broken. You must not be afraid of it. And I admire that. I admire that you're not afraid of that. And I am in the same boat as you, whereas I tend to give things that could be broken to my players. Prophet Roll says, I have separate conditions for arms and legs being bound for more nuance. Restrained just doesn't cut it. You know, you're right. Restrained doesn't cut it. JW says, homebrewing MacGuffins is fun. Really adds to the lore and the adventure. I agree. I do love homebrewing MacGuffins. In fact, I might do it too much. Robert says, I homebrewed a subclass, Alchemist, as well as a bunch of alchemical items. That was a lot of fun. I'm pretty sure Wizards of the Coast added that subclass a little later, but I never got to play or see it. Really interesting. Relin says, I find I have to homebrew a lot of the old stuff that hasn't been brought forward very well or incomplete. Planescape is fertile ground to homebrew the old stuff into 5e. There's a lot of old stuff that's awesome that could totally be brought into 5e. Totally, no doubt. Victory Lane Exotics says, hi, everyone. Hey, Victory Lane Exotics, Bill. How's it going? Drew and Dragon says, I have a lute in my Theros world that lets the performer gather devotees and they can manipulate what they pray for whom to each day. That's very specific and super interesting. If your character who has that lute and controls it, I'm assuming it's a bard, if they gained enough notoriety, the gods would start to take notice because it could be valuable. Dr. Fibe says, old Avalon Hill Wargames Panzer Blitz, Napoleon historic reenactment with chits that had picks of cannon or infantry with like numbers 4 to 5 attack, defense roll 6, slided dice crap. Oh, interesting. That reminds, when you say all that, it kind of reminds me of Axis and Allies, the board game, which I went through a phase where I was a hardcore Axis and Allies player, and I had an Axis and Allies group that met once a week, which is hyper nerdy, in my opinion. But it was so much fun. June Dragon says, on their way to godhood as we speak. Yep, nope, that sounds about right. Victory Lane Exotics Bill says, don't forget to smash that like. Heck yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you, I appreciate that. Garrick says, I homebrewed forgery as a thief skill long ago, but it was a mage ended up with the skill. Interesting. Okay, yeah, forgery now is more talked about, but it wasn't as talked about before, I don't think. All right, let's go to some of these Discord comments. Jubert says, in my opinion, I would say the best element to homebrew would be the world itself. So much creativity and emotion can go into a world. You own rules for cities, towns, villages, etc. I love to take the tour or 2-a-day express to something into the world I've created. I also enjoy throwing a little moment of like, the hell is that doing here? A lonely tower that not many know of, or an abandoned castle, or a random farmhouse in the middle of the woods is totally not a mimic. Okay, so little moments like, what the hell is that doing here? I get it now. Okay, shabam. Kelf is in the house. How's it going, Kelf? Dr. Fibe says, old school Axis had little cardboard pieces for armies. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I played Axis and Allies from the first. So there was an Axis and Allies. There was like a base game at first, and now they've reflavored that as 1942. I own 1942. I do not own a classic. I had a friend who owned like the classic original Axis and Allies game. Super, super fun. Actually, a high-key good game. Me and my friends were super serious about it. We were really serious about it. Drew and Dragon says they are a child of Xenagos. So in that, Xenagos, do you mean Xenagos from Magic the Gathering? So in that world, there is a tangible example of a mortal becoming a god. They can also use all their bardic inspiration and hit dice to expand how they may gain. And I'm assuming there's going to continue. Relin says, I had my wife come in for a session and carry a stinky lantern through the swamps with her turtle to ward off the monsters while guiding the players through. They loved it. Drew and Dragon says, exactly. Okay, gotcha. So you weave in some Magic the Gathering lore in there. Magic the Gathering lore is super metal. I love it. Victory Lane Exotics Bill says, currently homebrewing a one-shot or addition to my game of a hag disguised as a fortune teller. She's going to convince the group of an orc-goblin alliance starting, and she needs the goblins to see and I'm assuming it's going to continue. We don't see the rest. So I love hags. Hags are one of my most favorite creatures of all time. In my most recent core group campaign, Drew and Dragons is doing. They're going to convince the group of an orc-goblin alliance starting, and she needs the goblins to see the many they gain, so they take the damage and are sapped after playing this epic performance and ensnaring the minds of these people. 120 damage and gain 98 followers last performance. 98 followers is a lot of followers. It's like you're like building an army. So I love hags so much, and hags have children. And hag children mature at 13 years of age. And so I had my core group, they actually made a bargain with a hag where she kind of like gave them information they needed. And then she sent her daughter with them and is like, take her out in the world and raise her so she does not live here. And it turned out her name was Thorn, and she was a real thorn in their side. And then she ended up being a real problem. And they ended up having to kill her. But it was such a fun, epic arc. If you research hag children in the monster manual, like look up how hags reproduce and what their children are like. It is the most metal thing. It's super metal. JW, the DM, said, I also generally avoid core rules, but as some melee tanks leveled up, they had less and less effect on battles, so I added an additional attack and gave them a bonus for being more experienced. It worked well and hasn't broken yet. That's cool. That makes me wonder if you're playing 5th edition, because I kind of feel like tanks in 5th edition are way more they're way more like effective. I even feel like they were in 3rd edition. I feel like they have a lot, like martial characters are pretty powerful in 5e, I kind of feel like. But anyway, all right, shabam. Let's go to the Discord chat for a minute. Aeon 1974 said, classes and subclasses all the way. I made a grafter class, which allows you to steal monster parts and graft them into yourself. One of the best things I've ever made, in my opinion. Okay, I see where this is going. I have done this kind of thing before. It's 4 subclasses, each focus on a different creature type: monstrosity, fey, aberration, and humanoid. I also made a whole ton of subclasses: shaman, barbarian, a barbarian with the power of a 1/3 caster, the druid spell list and the ability to cast and concentrate on spells while raging, common guise rogue, which uses improvised weapons and disguises himself as a harmless unarmed combatant, Dungeon Master Warlock, causes enemies to go mad and control the very dice themselves. Tempo Bard, which uses chronomancy to manipulate, initiate, and speed. I think it means initiative and speed. I one time had so this was back, we were still playing 3rd edition, and I had a character playing a necromancy cleric. And they homebrewed a bunch of stuff. They were like proposing a bunch of homebrew stuff to me, and I just kept saying, sure, that's fine. That's fine. And they ended up building this weird monster army. They would like gather dead bodies of animals, and they ended up like smashing them together to make like Frankenstein monsters. They had a gnaponi, they called it, which was, they found a gnome body and then a pony body, and they put the gnome's head in the dead pony's chest and had his arms sticking out. And then they gave I think the pony also had like antlers from like an elk, and they just made that, and then it would like carry the necromancer's gear, and there was all kinds of wild stuff. It was very frightening. It was actually a horror campaign, so it fit, but I did not expect the nonsense that came. It was a wild campaign. Okay, so Prophet Roll says, I'm interested to hear if there's any homebrew to do with the later levels of D&D. That's a good question. Steven says, my table does homebrew spells all the time. Okay, Steven, do you ever find that they get overpowered, or are you pretty good at moderating that? That's my question. I kind of feel like homebrew spells, the problem with homebrew spells is that it's really easy to accidentally make them broken, and I'm not super afraid of that, but I have seen things get really out of hand before, and it causes like a party imbalance more than anything else. Steven says, making monsters is my favorite part of DMing. I feel like Dr. Frankenstein. Yes. DM Hostile Intent says, what in the Weekend at Bernie's are you talking about, philosopher? I don't know which part you're referencing. All right, we're going to go back to the Discord chat. We're going to go to Garrick. Minor trivia. Trolls like to ambush, and I made a troll variant called Chameleon Troll that blends into its surroundings and surprises on 1 to 5 on a d6. Even when moving, it partially blends in, enough to add 2 to AC. It's worked out very well for me. Chameleon Troll. I like it. I actually really like it. Aeon 1974 says, Way of the Kraken is one of the coolest monk subclasses I've ever read. I don't know what that is, but I believe you. Dr. Fibes says, Homebrew has now become, it seems, sometimes as a way of a GM interjecting a game design mechanism that favors or flavors their own table, which is fine. Except it often doesn't have the mindset of balance, fairness, fun, future repercussions, etc. Certain homebrew stuff can be game-wreaking, bad critical hit fumble charts, overpowered monsters, magic items. Just changing rules cause somehow GM thinks it makes it better. Often it doesn't. Fine line between cool idea and game design theory. So I kind of understand this. There are some things that, to be really honest, it's going to break the game a little bit. And once again, I'm not super afraid of that. What I'm more afraid of, I'm not so afraid of players being powerful. I'm afraid of one player being way more powerful than the other players. That's actually what causes the biggest problems. Someone said 31 in the chat. There's 32 viewers in the chat. Heck yeah. Thank you all. That's a new record. That's a GM philosophy record. Heck yeah. That's cause for celebration. If I had another sip of my energy drink, I would take it. All right. Let's get back to the chat here for a minute. Profit Roll says, I was allowed to play a race I created. All of its features were redundant, though, as I got the same effects from being a barbarian build I played. That's cool. It can still be fun for flavor. Roland Smith says, belt of Duggar kind. I assume you mean Drugger kind and not Duggar kind, as in the Duggars who had like 20 kids. I think that's what you meant. Herminator says, woo, 31 in live stream. Heck yeah. Relin says, Constitution 2 to a maximum of 20. Advantage on charisma persuasion checks made to interact with Duggar. I think you mean like the dwarven, like dwarven race of Duggar, of the cold, like undead type. Is that what you mean? I'm not 100% sure I know what that is. You have disadvantage on charisma persuasion checks, dwarves, sunlight sensitivity. Relin says, you all get inspiration. Yeah, heck yeah. Victory Lane Exotics Bill says, nice, let's continue to hit that. Like, keep growing. Yeah, absolutely. DM Hostile Intent says, give them the ability to speak Undercommon or the enlarge ability from Duggar, and I love this belt, Relin. Yeah, heck yeah. Profit Roll says, yeah, the flavor was great. Dr. Fibe says, new record. Woohoo. The dwarf dudes. Okay, Relin, you're talking about the dwarf dudes. I know who you're talking about. I guess I thought they were called Drugger, but they're Duggar. But there's one of those in William's game on Sunday nights that I play with. He's a healer. He's a druid. Robert says, if you add a rule, you can take it away. Don't be afraid to play test your ideas. Add a sunset clause. That way there is time to fix things if needed. Okay, so that's actually a good point. When you add things and then you take them away, it's pronounced Durgar. Oh, look at that. Herminator high key solved that for me with just one simple sentence. He taught me how to say it. Durgar. Robert Evans, you are correct. And that's a good thing to describe because sometimes it feels like if you make a change, but then you take it back, it's like dirty. It feels dirty. But if you include a sunset clause, that is fair. That's very fair. Steven says, the spells get tweaked all the time. Adding or subtracting die or spell slots costs. The DM guide has got a nice chart on crafting spells. Nice. Okay. Bearded Thoughts said something but message retracted. What? I don't know what I guess it means that the message got erased. All right. Let's go to the Discord chat a little bit more. John Haney said, the game world. World building is awesome. Also, I enjoy creating and altering stat blocks. That's awesome. John Haney and Dirty Socks are our moderators, which IE is also called the counselors in our Discord. If you have not joined the Discord, you should do so. It's awesome. We talk a lot in there every day about cool, awesome stuff, and you should join. And then you can also get down on these conversations. JW the DM says you can homebrew anything. Homebrewing the campaign and modding monsters are two things I do most often, followed by modding various rules. Very nice. Garrick says variant magic items. I posted my alternatives to the standard protection scrolls a few days back. Nice. That's awesome. Variants to standard protection scrolls. Dr. Five says, absolutely, John. Then came the world building stuff, because you only got an idea about the D&D world from tidbits from original player handbook or DM guides or monster manual. Wasn't until a few years later when modules World of Greyhawk stuff dropped. Oh, so I think what Dr. Five is saying, it used to be, well, you had to homebrew your world, but then they started coming out with like world modules. So, it became maybe less needed, but still super fun. Garrick says, some hostels recently had arrows, +1, +3 versus casters, and my party casters did not appreciate it one bit. Nice. But then there's a question, were the arrows magical? Or was it a maneuver by the archers? You know that trick? It's like when you have enemies who get magic bonuses and then the player characters destroy them and they collect the weapons. And they're like, all right, what are these magic items? And you're like, oh no, they're not actually magical. They were magical abilities. And then the players are like, you suck. We thought they were magic items. We thought we were getting magic items. All right. Let's see what else is in the Discord here. There's a little conversation. Let's see here. Superfly Rob said, I have many thoughts about this subject, but I will keep it brief. The best TTRPG elements of Homebrew is the creativity. Unlike modules, you can almost never repeat the same adventure, nor does the player know where this adventure campaign is going. I actually agree with that, and that's very true. And that's one of the great things about Homebrew. And that's one of the great things about homebrewing monsters, is they never know. You bring in a bugbear, it's like, okay, is this actually a bugbear, or is this like our GM's version of a bugbear? Because those are two very different things, and I think that's fun. The only published books I use are the core rule books, no matter what system I play or GM. Personally, I believe that the homebrew is one of the core elements of the RPG hobby. I have a hot take on modules. Let's just say I don't like them, and I believe they are a crutch. It only takes about 15 minutes a day for 6 days to hash out a basic adventure or session. You can do that during your morning constitutional, as long as you have a phone or a pocket notebook. I love homebrew. Modules have issues and are just a money grab for corporations. Ooh, that's a hot take. It's a very hot take. Especially with this newest edition, in my opinion. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk Steps Off Soapbox. Wow, Superfly Rob really dropped the mic on that one. I don't disagree with everything. So, but here's the thing about modules. Modules can be really cool. I have gotten some great ideas from modules, but I have not run very many modules verbatim. Usually what I do is I take the little bits I like, which account for about 25% of it, and then I just like homebrew the rest. And I think that's kind of what Superfly Rob is saying. I think he would probably agree with me on that. All right, I'm gonna get some of these comments in the chat. Bearded Thoughts says, so for me, I use homebrew to fix doesn't feel good moments. Like, for example, the Smite and Hunter's Mark in 2024. You don't like the Smite or Hunter's Mark in 2024. Why not? Tell me why. Because I think they're done kind of well. I kind of like them. Relin Smash says, advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. You have a dark vision out to a range of 120 feet, side effect, blood red eyes. Speak, read, write, undercommon. I think we're still talking about the Durgar stuff. Connor Johnson says, I like doing module mashups sometimes, mixing different modules and one-shots, especially if you take them from a system-agnostic standpoint. I agree. Relin says, you are buying the canon. I don't know what that means. Victory Lane Exotics Bill says, I'm also using a Myths and Legends of the World book. It is probably 600 pages and a short description of real-world myths, legends, and even some biblical information, and it's in alphabetical order. Wait a minute. I'm also using a Myths and Legends of the World book. Do you mean there's a 600-page book? Myths and Legends of the World? Like, is that what you're using for source material? That's massive and awesome. Herminator says, I'm in the middle of mixing Phandelver and Below with Vecna Eve of Ruin to make a 1 to 20 campaign for my group. Oh, that's interesting. Herminator, you have to keep me updated on that. You have to let me know how you like that, because that sounds really awesome. All right, we have time for a couple more comments. Hostile Intent said in Discord, my fave is to homebrew villains, even when it's something simple, like giving them action surge. Players really appreciate it when they know you've given the encounter something extra. Players really appreciate it when you give that villain action surge. I'm here to tell you, they love it. It's feeling very original as they're rolling death saving throws. But Hostile Intent, I appreciate it, and I think that you're correct. Let's see here. What have we got? Hostile Intent also said, beware, mimic tongues are sticky. Yeah, I think you're right. Let's see here. Bobby Vo said, due to the jank of CR, I especially love homebrewing monsters and enemies in general. I also like to run horror-like games, so this fits better for me rather than using existing monsters. It also helps to keep any sort of meta knowledge to a minimum. That is true. Keeping meta knowledge to a minimum is the fun part about homebrewing monsters, or at least adjusting monsters. Like, I'll run angels or demons or devils a lot, right? But oftentimes they will be homebrewed versions. So the players will be like, okay, well, we know that this GM likes to homebrew these things. We're not going to count on anything being true, so that's a fun thing. So let's go to a couple of these comments quick before we wrap up. Relin says, buying a Faerun adventure setting to run the setting properly or to arm yourself with all the lore. And then Robert says, I have played my fair share of modules, but I am always feeling that it could have been better. Modules are more limiting than the homebrew. That's true. You've got to kind of just take what you like, and then a lot of it should be homebrewed, right? The modules just give you a starting point, I feel like. The Robot Viking says, hey, what mic are you using? I was just looking at one like that. I am using a Maono, Maono. This is available on Amazon. You can buy like the whole set, and it's pretty inexpensive. It's like $50, but that's the kind of mic I'm using, and it so far is working better than my other mic, which I bought for like $20 at Best Buy. So we're moving up in the world. We're moving up in the world. Bearded Thoughts says, I like Smite being once per turn, but think it's too far of a debuff to also make it a bonus action. As for the Hunter's Mark, it being concentration and a central point of the Ranger with it, not scaling. Oh, I understand. I do understand. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't disagree with you. Herminator says, we only play once a month right now. Haven't made it very far yet. That's okay. Just keep me updated. Relin Smash says, I'm also running Eva Vecna at the moment. I renamed it and it starts in Planescape. Good luck on your campaign. DM Hostile Intent says, damn right, the from the table means they like it. Yeah, okay, so yep. That action surge, FTW. Robert says, lol, it's VO as in voiceover. Oh, did I say Bobby V? I said Bobby Vo, but it's Bobby as in voiceover. That's funny. Count on me to get it wrong. Relin says, if you run a cultist, you got to add some spells and flavors. Yeah, I agree. You got to add some spells, and you should homebrewing spell. Okay, I'm going to say this. Homebrewing spells for enemies is different than giving players homebrew spells, because when you homebrew spells for enemies, you can keep them from being broken moment by moment. Harder to do with players because players will abuse them, right? Hot take. Victory Lane Exotics Bill says, I'll snap a few pics late tonight when I get home. Going to Harlem Globetrotters tonight. Going to the Harlem Globetrotters? That's really awesome. Have fun. Steven says, also making NPCs is a great way to flex homebrew brain. Absolutely. I love homebrewing NPCs. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Dr. Five says, is that in your affiliate site on Amazon? It could be. I don't have the link right now. That's okay. Just buy the mic. If I don't get the affiliate, it's all right. We'll survive this time. Whoa, it just turned red. I do not know why that happened. It's changing colors. I don't know what's going on. Robert says shabam. I agree. Shabam. Mick D64 says, one of the changes I do in my game is scrolls. Anyone can use them. Why have huge section of magic items that only a couple classes can use them reliably, but can be expensive? Scrolls. Okay. It used to be that you had to roll. In 3rd edition, you had to have the use magic item skill to use scrolls. And that's like, okay. I do understand, though, giving anyone the ability to use scrolls. But here's what I think. I kind of think that it should be like an Arcana check, but you don't have to be proficient to try, but you have to roll over a 10. Because it's super possible that the layman will mess up using a scroll. I just feel like using a scroll isn't like, oh, get parchment, push button. I feel like it's more sophisticated, but you shouldn't have to have gone to college to be a wizard to use a scroll, right? So I think it's somewhere in between. Relin says, I think Baldur's Gate 3 handles scrolls this way. I'm not sure. I've not played Baldur's Gate 3. It looks fun, but I haven't played it. All right, with that being said, we have come up on 1:40, and I have to get back to work. Thank you all for having a great coffee break live with me. This has been the best one yet. We had record number of participants today. Thank you so much for hanging out, for joining me. And I would love to continue this on Monday, and we're going to. Monday through Friday next week, 1 p.m. CST every single day. We do Coffee Break Live. Bring your caffeinated beverages and join me for some shenanigans here on the YouTube. So I will see you all later. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and roll some D100s.